So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the UK striking a trade deal with New Zealand that's going to add absolutely nothing to our GDP. It might even negatively impact it because it's within, I think, 0.02% is the margin of error. So we'll either add, I think it's like 0.01% to our GDP or minus 0.01% to our GDP, which is great, really, when you think about it. It adds nothing, it's just more optics nonsense. So Britain has struck a free trade deal with New Zealand, a key ally, as ministers hope to stem the country's reliance on China, but the agreement is to add no value to the UK's GDP. Now, this is good for New Zealand, which we'll talk about towards the end of the video, and we're going to look at some geography, but great for New Zealand, rubbish for the UK, and bad for British farmers. Despite the Department for International Trade heralding the deal as a groundbreaking achievement that was a vital part of Boris Johnson's commitment to levelling up, it has nothing to do with levelling up. Absolutely nothing. The Prime Minister has been accused of selling out British farmers again. Tariffs as high as 10% are set to be removed on a range of UK goods, including clothes, buses, ships, and bulldozers. I can't imagine New Zealand buying a lot of bulldozers and ships from the UK. Like, the shipping costs on those would be insane. The price of New Zealand's produced Sauvignon Blanc, Makua honey, and kiwi fruit should dip after 16 months of talks. The kiwi fruit thing is a good thing because I enjoy some kiwis. The honey, I don't think I've ever tried that, and Sauvignon Blanc I don't drink, so I get 2 out of 3 of those, so great stuff. But it's going to benefit them because kiwis are, I think you can only get them from New Zealand, maybe from Australia, I don't know. The honey is very specific as well. Wine you can get from a range of places. So again, it does benefit the UK consumer to an extent, but it is going to massively impact farmers who are going to have to face more competition from the Aussies and now the mighty New Zealanders as well. So trade between the UK and New Zealand is now worth £2.3 billion a year, which sounds like a big figure, but when it comes to global trade, it's nothing, especially for the UK. And the government said that would rise as the deal would make it easier for small businesses to break into the New Zealand market, which I suppose is true, but the shipping costs for small businesses will be ridiculous. They're not going to bother. As well as remove barriers for advanced tech and service companies, which I guess is fine, but the trade deal with New Zealand, we're still going to have non-tariff barriers anyway, so you're still going to face the same problems you have when you export to the EU. The only difference is you're going to pay a lot more for shipping, and this is really bad for climate change. So it follows the recent trade agreement struck with Japan, the one that is worse than the EU deal, and the deal in principle with Australia, which Australia apparently backing out of because they want more concessions, which, thanks guys, again. The focus on the region is part of Johnson's 10-year plan to tilt the UK's foreign policy towards Indo-Pacific, strengthening the alliance and the position of democratic countries in the region to make them more competitive against China, which, again, is not necessarily a bad thing, but we could have done these things without having to do Brexit, really. I'm sure the EU are looking at getting a trade deal with Australia and New Zealand, and the EU have an equivalency deal with New Zealand anyways on agri-food, so they're definitely moving in that direction. It is taking time, but no doubt the EU will get a far better deal with Australia and New Zealand than we will. That's going to add far more to the EU's GDP rather than being in margin of error. Jesus, for negatively impacting our economy. New Zealand is heavily reliant on China for trade, with more than 30% of its exports going to Chinese markets. The country has come under fire for having a gentler rhetoric towards China. You know, we know Australia and China are involved in some sort of trade war, and New Zealand is very trade dependent on China. China is a massive market for them. We'll look at the geography in a moment. Foreign Minister Nanea, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name, has previously urged exporters to diversify and reduce their vulnerability to geopolitical shocks like the trade war Australia is facing, which is true. Countries like New Zealand and the UK should diversify the trade we do with countries. It's just a shame we backed out of a trade arrangement with, 27 other countries. Ridiculous. New Zealand opposition leader Judith Collins told the Guardian this month that by not providing a free trade agreement, the US and the UK were leaving the door open to Chinese dominance in the Indo-Pacific region, which is very true. Without having free trade agreements, it does leave these countries very vulnerable to having to do trade predominantly with China, because China is a huge market and you can't have beef with your regular trading partners that, New Zealand is reliant, I think 30% of its exports going to China. is very reliant on China, and that gives China a lot of leverage in trade negotiations, but also political negotiations as well. Ardent said the COVID-19 had taught the country that we must have as many options for our world-class products to ensure certainty for our primary producers. The deal may boost New Zealand's GDP by around 970 million or 0.3% of GDP. So if we put that in margin of error, we can say it would be between 0.1 and 0.3%, which isn't huge, but they are in the positive, and it does help them break into the UK trade economy. I think it would be margin of error would be 0.2% in that case, or would it be 0.02% in that case? I'm no expert in this stuff, but if we say margin of error, if it's between 0.2 to say 0.4%, that's good news for the New Zealanders, where they're going to make money off this deal, guaranteed. And they have a new market for them to export into, which makes them far less reliant on, or not far less, slightly less reliant on China, and it gives them slightly more leverage in any negotiations and political problems. However, last year's analysis by the UK government found that its effects on Britain's GDP would have a limited effect in the long run, being between a positive growth of 0.01%, which is nothing, or a negative growth of 0.01%. So it adds nothing, it's purely optics. If they said we're doing this deal to deal with China's dominance in the region, I would have given them credit, but this is just dumb. This is dumb because they're going to try and herald this as a Brexit success when it's really just a Brexit failure. Boris Johnson said this is a great trade deal for the United Kingdom. It's not cementing our long friendship with New Zealand, an area we colonised, and furthering our ties with the Indo-Pacific. It will further benefit businesses and consumers across the country, cutting costs for exporters and opening up access for our workers. If you wanted access for our workers abroad, why did you end freedom of movement? Joker. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who is pretty cool to be fair, said it's one of our best deals ever and secured at a crucial moment in our COVID recovery. So it's one of their best deals ever because I'm guessing they gave minimal concessions and they got maximum benefit out of this. I would not be surprised. This deal will cut costs for exporters immediately, creating opportunities for New Zealand's businesses to grow and diversify their trade while boosting the economy as we recover from COVID-19. Now, from what I remember in the supermarkets, we do import that stuff from New Zealand anyways. That honey, I've seen that, it's very expensive, and we do import a lot of kiwis from New Zealand as well, so it does benefit them a lot because those tariffs will be cut. I don't know how much stuff the UK exports to New Zealand, but they could probably get it from elsewhere, from closer countries. Kiwis grow in a very specific region of the world. This deal will cut costs for exporters, we mentioned that. Manaine Batters, the National Farmers Union president, said it would open the country's door to significant extra volume of imported food, whether or not produced to our own high standards. Now, I'm assuming New Zealand has high standards because they have an equivalency deal with the EU, so I wouldn't be that worried about standards, but it does open up the UK to more cheaper exports from other countries. Or imports, should I say, while securing almost nothing in return for UK farmers. Not to forget the fact that if Australia was short on lamb or beef or chicken, New Zealand, if it was short on those things, Australia's like on their doorstep. She added, we should all be worried that there could be a huge downside to these deals. There is a huge downside to these deals, especially for sectors such as dairy, red meat and horticulture. The government is now asking British farmers to go toe-to-toe with some of the most export-orientated farmers in the world without the serious long-term and properly funded investment in the UK agriculture that can enable us to do so. Not to forget the fact that the British government have cut massive amounts of subsidies to farmers as well. So not only do they have to compete with other agricultural powers and superpowers, they also had their funding cut by the British government. Very patriotic of you, Boris Johnson. Emily Thornberry, the Shadow Trade Secretary, said it is a deal whose only major winners are the mega corporations who run New Zealand's meat and dairy farms, all at the expense of the British farmers who are already struggling to compete. But for British jobs, growth and exports, this deal is yet another massive failure, which is, again, 100% true. All of these things are true. Let's go for a bit more. So we look at the geography again. It feels like I'm bringing up the map every day now. So look, we've lost this market on our doorstep, right? We're trying to get a market which is all the way on the other side of the world. I can't even zoom out that far. So you can't even see, you can barely see the two on the map on the big screen, because that's how far away we are. We are here. New Zealand are here. New Zealand are trying to reduce the amount of trade they do with China, which is a bit far from New Zealand, but is probably less than half the distance the UK is. So they're not going to cut their trade dependency that much on China, but it does show a pivot from New Zealand to a massive amount of trade reliance with China, trying to move to other countries. Now, if they manage to get a trade deal with the US, it's far, but it's not as far as the UK is. Not to forget there's massive land masses in the way. If we wanted to do trade with New Zealand, it would probably go through the Suez Canal, which is here, which I always found really interesting, the Suez Canal, don't know why. And it would probably go through, it would have to go through the EU, or it's going to have to ship around here on some sort of big cargo carrier, which, good luck carrying meat on those. It's going to be the honey and the Sauvignon Blanc that's going to come through there. All the way around through I think it's the Strait of Gibraltar, all the way around there and into the UK. And it's going to land probably in Plymouth, and we're not going to have the drivers to ship them around anywhere because there's a massive shortage of HGV drivers. So yeah, massive joke. If New Zealand was short on beef, they could go to Australia, which is right here. But yeah, shocking stuff. And we look at this picture, which shows you that we're not going to benefit anything from the trade deal. And if you go, within the margin of error, what's it called? Consumption expenditure minus 0.01, net trade minus 0.1. Sorry, minus 0.01. So it's not gonna benefit us that much, is it? So it's an absolute joke. But yeah, what more can I say apart from well done? We got pantsed by a former colony. Once again, congrats to Arden and New Zealand. You've caught the UK at a very big moment of weakness, and yeah, I look forward to trying that honey, which is really expensive. But this is just embarrassing, isn't it? We signed another trade deal which adds nothing to our economy. If anything, she probably could have got more concessions out of us, like New Zealand can export beef to the UK tariff free, and the UK can't do that. I'm sure she could have done that if she really wanted to here. But what a joke! Congratulations, New Zealand, you've one-nilled us. But yeah, anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.